Here we're being asked to solve the equation, inequality, and write the solution in interval notation. As we solve it, we're going to get to the inequality notation, which will have the inequality symbol in it. And then once we have that answer, then we have to turn it over into the interval notation. So the first step is first, solving it. I look at each side of the inequality, and I look to see how many times do I see my x. 2 there, 1 there. So one of the first things I need to do is get all of my x's together. The way I'm going to do that is by using my distributive property. 7x positive times minus is minus. 7 times 2, 14. Carry down my plus x. Carry down my same symbol that I have until I get to where I'm dividing by a negative. Distribute. Notice I'm taking the negative sign with it. So negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. Negative 4 times minus x. Negative times minus is plus. 4 times x is 4x. My parentheses stop, so I don't distribute anymore after that. I stop right there. And I just carry the minus 12 down. Combine my like terms. On this side I have an x term here and an x term there. And I'm only looking at one side of the inequality. I'm completely ignoring that for now. Just on this side. So I'm going to combine my 7x plus x. That gives me 8x. And then I just carry down my minus 14. Keep my sign the same. Now I'm ignoring this side and I'm looking only at that side. So I have a non-x term and a non-x term. I combine them. So minus 20, minus 12, minus 32. And I just carry down my plus 4x. Now I take another look at my equation. Is this side as simple as I can get it? Yes. Is that side as simple as I can get it? Yes. How many times do we see the x? 1 there, 1 there, total of 2 times. I can't have that. I have to move them all to the same side. Personal preference, I like positive coefficients for my letters. So I look at my 8x, I look at my 4x, it's a plus, that's a positive. So I'm thinking 8 minus 4, that's going to give me a positive. So I am subtracting the 4 over. That's why I'm moving the 4x instead of the 8x. 8 minus 4 is 4. X. Carry down my minus 14. Carry down my symbol. Carry down my minus 32. Negative 32. And they canceled out. Only one time do I see my x now. Now I can start actually solving for it. So I look at the side of the inequality where my x is. I look for anything that's being added or subtracted to it. I need to get rid of that minus 14. So I'm adding 14. That cancels out over here. I have 4x. I have my same symbol. Negative 32 plus 14. If you don't know what it is, feel free to grab your calculator. Negative 18. X is not alone yet. I need to divide out the 4. Divide 4. Divide 4. The 4 divide 4 cancels out. I now have x alone. I divide it by a positive number. Very important there. I divide it by a positive number, so my sign stays the same. Now I have negative 18 divided by 4. Grab your calculator, type that in. Negative 4.5. I now have my answer in inequality notation. I need to put it into interval notation. So that means I have to figure out what the smallest number is that x can be, what the biggest number is that x can be. So I see this and I see that x is less than negative 4.5. So x is the smaller of the two numbers. Negative 4.5 is the larger of the two numbers. So that's telling me that my negative 4.5 goes after the comma. Now I have to figure out, do I close this off with a square bracket or a round parentheses? Well, that depends on whether this is allowed to be equal or not. So I look at my symbol, I see that extra little bar there. It is allowed to be equal. So I have my square bracket. What do I put in this space over here? What is the smallest thing that x is allowed to be? It can keep going and going and going all the way to negative infinity. There is no limit on what it can be. Infinity, whether it's a positive or negative, always gets the parentheses. Now I have my answer in interval notation. Now my answer is done. I'm including this problem in here because fractions are scary, right? They don't need to be. I'll show you how to fix it. So we have to write this solve the equation and write the solution in interval notation. 1/2 times the difference of x and 5 is strictly less than, no equal to part there, 1/3 times the difference of 2x and 1. So the first thing I want to do here is I want to get rid of these fractions. So to get rid of the fraction over here, the 1/2, I am going to multiply by the reciprocal. What I do to change the problem on one side, I have to do exactly the same thing on the other side. So my 2 cancels my 2. And I'm left with just x minus 5 over on this side. Over on that side, I have my 2 over 1. It doesn't have to be over 1, because anything divided by 1 is just that number. So 2 divided by 1 is just 2. So that one's okay. This one, though, the 1/3, not okay because it's a fraction. It has a 3 on the bottom, not a 1. So I need to get rid of that 3 that's on the bottom. To get rid of something on the bottom, I multiply it on the top. So I'm multiplying this by 3 over 1. I've changed my problem on that side now. I have to change it exactly the same way over here. This 3 being over 1, that's okay. It's not a real bad fraction. It's just 3 divided by 1 is 3. So it's fine. My 3 canceled my 3. And 1 over 1 is just 1, so that's gone. So I'm going to rewrite this now. And I'm going to leave the divide by 1 off of here. So I have 3, open parentheses, x minus 5, close parentheses, is less than, open parentheses, 2x minus 1, close parentheses, times 2. Now that you see it looking like this, it looks a lot easier than what it did when it had the fractions on it. Now you can handle it and you can solve it on your own. So you've gotten to the next step. Let me show you that you're right. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times minus 5 is minus 15. We keep our sign the same. 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times minus 1 is minus 2. My x shows up on both sides. I need to get it all onto one side. So typically, you are used to moving things from the right side to the left side. But I'm not going to do that this time. I see the 3, I see the 4, they're both positive numbers. If I want to have a positive coefficient, which I like positive coefficients much more than negative coefficients, I want a positive coefficient, so I'm going to take this 3 and I'm going to move it over to here. So I am subtracting the 3x. So that's canceled out. I have negative 15. I keep my less than sign. 4 minus 3 is 1. That has the x with it. And I carry down my minus 2. One times x is just x. I don't need the 1 there. So now I look, no x is showing up over here. My x shows up only 1 time there. I have to get rid of this 2 here. I add my 2. Negative 15 plus 2. You owe $15. You get $2 from somebody that owed you. Now you owe only 13. So negative 15 plus 2 is negative 13. Keep my sign the same. X carries down. Negative 2 plus 2 cancels out. I have my answer. This is inequality notation. I need to write my answer in interval notation. So you might be wondering, how do I know the difference between inequality notation and interval notation? This has an inequality sign in it. It has a less than sign in it. So that's what makes this inequality notation. So then going over to interval notation, first thing I have to do with this is figure out which of these numbers is going to be bigger. Remember, Pac-Man, the alligator, likes to eat the bigger number. So since it's going to try to eat the x, that means that the x is bigger. You want to grab for more money rather than less money. So if you want to grab for the x, which is what it's showing there, that is telling you that the x is more money. It's the bigger number. So now I know that x is the bigger one, negative 13 is the smaller one. So if I'm running my smaller one down first, and then my comma, which is what you're supposed to do, that goes there. I need to figure out what symbol to put here. Do I put my round parentheses, or do I put my square bracket? Do I have an equal to sign on my less than symbol? No. Because it's not allowed to equal, I get the round parentheses. What goes on the other side of the comma? Well, how big is x allowed to be? 100, 1,000, 50,000? It can keep going and going and going all the way to infinity. And infinity always gets the round parentheses. I now have my interval notation. So now I have my answer that they wanted me to do. I solved it, I have it written in inequality, and I also put it into interval. Solve and write the solution in interval notation. Negative 6x plus 2 is less than negative 3 times the sum of x and 4. So I see that my x is showing up on both sides. I want to simplify each side. This side over here, negative 6x plus 2, is already simple. Can't do anything more without moving things across the equal sign. That side, I can distribute my negative 3. I'm taking the negative sign with the 3. So negative 3 times x, negative 3x. Negative 3 times 4, negative times plus, negative 3 times 4, 12. The rest of the problem just gets carried down. My letters are on both sides still. Personal preference, I like positive coefficients. So I see this negative 6 here, I see the negative 3 there, my coefficients, and I think, well, if I were to add the 3x here, and add the 3x over here, that's going to give me a negative 3x. I do not want that. I want a positive coefficient. So I am going to add 6x on each side. Now the minus 6 plus 6 cancels out. I have my plus 2 there. Carry this down as it's written. That's sloppy. Negative 3 plus 6, 3. Carry the x down with it, and carry the minus 12 down. Next step. X here. I need to get rid of my add subtract. I'm going backwards with my order of operations because I'm moving across the equal sign. So now I have 2 plus 12, I get 14. Keep my sign the same. Carry down my 3x. minus 12 plus 12 canceled out. X is not yet alone. So I need to divide the 3. Now the 3 cancels the 3. I'm left with X on that side. I divide it by a positive number, so my symbol stays the same. And I need to figure out what 14 divided by 3 is. So 14 divide 3 equals 4.6 with a repeating 6. I put my bar over there to say that that 6 keeps going. I could also write this as 4 2/3 is less than X. Or I could write it as 14/3 is less than X. Any one of these is okay as an answer. It just depends on what you're being asked to do. Are you being told that a decimal is okay? Well, take it to however far you're allowed to take it and then round it. Or put the bar over it to say it keeps going. Are you told a mixed number is okay? If so, turn that 0.6 repeating into 2/3 and answer it as 4 2/3. Or are you told that an improper fraction is okay? In which case, just keep that 14/3 right there. That's done. Now, the problem itself isn't done because we still have to write this in interval notation. So now I have to figure out which one is smaller, the X or the number. So I look at my symbol. Pac-Man likes to eat the bigger number. Alligator likes the bigger number. You want to grab for the more money. Okay. So the X is the bigger. Which means that the 4.6 or the 4 2/3, I'm going to use the 4 2/3 here. The 4 2/3 is going to be the smaller number. It's going to come before the comma. Now I have to figure out what symbol goes here. Parentheses or bracket. Do I have an equal sign? No. No equal sign, I put the parentheses. What goes over on this side? How big does this number get? Goes all the way up to infinity. Infinity always gets parentheses. So now I have my interval notation here, my inequality notation there, and I am done with my problem.